My full name is Robert Wayne Armstrong, and I was born in New Orleans, Mississippi on January 23rd, 1947, at the Chance Hospital. And grew up in the Red Hill community at Blue Springs. And my parents' name is Booker Armstrong and Sadie Creighton Armstrong. And I attended school at Red Hill Elementary School in Blue Springs. My parents' names are Booker Armstrong and Sadie Creighton Armstrong. My mama was born in Belleville, Mississippi, and my dad was born in Blue Springs, Mississippi. My grandparents were members of the Red Hill community. They were been there all their lives. My great grandparents were former slaves, and they all grew up in the Red Hill community back in the Red Hill community was started back after the Civil War, and it was between Fairfield and Union County. It's in between Lee County and Union County, between Macedonia and Lee County, and Fairfield and Union County. The Red Hill community is in between those two, part of the Lee County, part of the Union County. They have four brothers.
And what are their names? Oldest to youngest?
Well, I'm the oldest, and then James Henry Armstrong was the second one, and Philip Larry Armstrong, and Lonnie Michael Armstrong, and Curtis Lee Armstrong. And Curtis Lee is deceased, but all the rest of them still living. James Henry he's in Illinois, Central Illinois, out from St. Louis, Missouri. And Philip Larry, he's a lifelong resident of Red Hill. He's been living there all his life. He's 77 years old still. And then Lonnie Michael, he's in Maryland, some parts of Maryland with his daughter. And of course, Curtis is deceased. He was a lifelong resident of Red Hill too, but his wife and his widow, and they live in Guntown. His daughter, his wife and daughters, they live in Guntown. Well, we was in a rural area. We went to school at, we had summer school at Red Hill. We had school at Red Hill Elementary School. And then in those days we had split sections. We went to school in July and August. And then you would be out to work in the fields in September and October. And then you would start back in November. At that time, when I first started school, we only had 8 months. We got in April, so we'd be out for summer in May and June. Then we start back in July, after the 4th of July, go up to about Labor Day. So when I started school, I was 4 years old, because I lived right across the street from across the road from the Red Hill School. And I used to go out and play with the children, and they could take on the recess breaks, and so I ended up starting to just going to school with them. And back in those days, they didn't have a lot of restrictions like we do now. I was 6 years old when I started working in the fields. Usually, back in those days, when you got big enough to go to school, and you went to work in the fields.
What was your job when you first started? What would a 6-year-old's job be in the field?
Well, pick cotton mostly.
Who would teach you how to do that?
Well, my parents, they would be picking too. They'd be picking alongside me and other people. And back then, they picked mostly it was like $3 a hundred, and I don't know how many pounds you pick a day, but then, you get paid every day, so if you pick 100 pounds, then you get $3, like $3 a day. Depending on how much, whatever you pick for the day, you get 3 cents for each one, You pick 300 pounds, and you got $9, and you pick 200 pounds, you got $6, whatever. It was $3 a hundred, whatever you pick for that day. They would, they would weigh the scales up, they would weigh it. When you get a sack for the landowner would weigh it up, and then they put down what you made. Then at the end of the day, they had your total of it, and then whatever you made, they would pay you on the spot that day. They had a wagon and scales at the wagon, and every time you load up when you load up your cotton, they would take it to the, you take it to to the field, and enter the field, you know, and the owner, well, he would do that the way up you caught it, right to sack whenever you get ready. But then at the end of the day, but then you would, you know, every time you weigh up, you put down the amount you had. Then they come up to the count the pounds you had, and then they never pay you like $3 for each. If you had 50 pounds, you get $1.50, and you know, the 12 is 3 times whatever you had for the day. Now, a 6-year-old probably picked maybe 50 pounds in a day. My brothers all worked at, and my dad all worked at Pennsylvania Tire Company in Tupelo. When they closed down in 1979, my dad and all 4 of my brothers were working there at the time. My dad graduated from high school in 1939 at Union County Training School in New Orleans. My mom, she just went to finish 8th grade at Bella. The school she went to was named Cedar Grove. It's in Macedonia, it's in Macedonia, where the Macedonia community in Red Hill, and then in the Macedonia community in Lee County. Yeah, the people in Lee County, they went to school at Cedar Grove. And the people in Union County went to school at Red Hill, and the people in Pontiac County went to school at Sherman. But later on, they consolidated the school later on. By the time I started school, well, we were going to school at Red Hill. Like at the end of those days, the school would only go to the 8th grade, you know. The county schools don't go to the 8th grade. And then you have to go to the Pontiac, Tupelo, I went to go to high school. And there, well, my parents, they didn't have buses, you know, for them. For a black child to go to school in high school, they'd have to stay with somebody that lived in the town. And, like my dad and several of us, they stayed in New Orleans, they stayed with some people in New Orleans in high school. And, you know, they'd come on the weekend, but they would stay with, they'd board with somebody that lived in that town and go to school.
Do you know who your dad would live with when he stayed?
I actually stayed with the Ford, you know, Miss Brenda Kimball. They stayed in the basement it's across the street from the BF Ford School. They stayed in the basement. And Mr. Ford, Mr. Brenda Kimball's daddy was the principal then. And they stayed at his house. You remember Charlie Woodwell, he taught school up there. And Daniel Hall and all several of them went to. Some of the children live out in the county, you know, they stayed there in the basement at his school. And different ones would stay. My aunt stayed, my Aunt May King, she taught, and my mama's sister, and also all my relatives, they all would stay with somebody, you know, somebody in the community. They would stay with somebody back in this was back in the day, back in when they was in school.
Do you know how they would get into town to get to school? Would they go on like Sunday nights or Monday mornings?
They probably would catch the bus out there. The Greyhound bus would run from, at that time the Greyhound bus would run from, they would probably catch the bus in Sherman. And that's the store in Sherman, the Greyhound bus would stop in Sherman at the store. And they would ride to New Orleans, Tupelo or whatever, you know. That's most of the main reason. Either they had a train too. Someone would catch a train. The train was run, would stop in Sherman also. That's what they would do. They'd go to Sherman and catch the train in New Orleans. They would catch the bus in New Orleans back in those days. But then later on, by the time I started school, well, they had buses and the children would go to school in the counties from the 1st to the 8th grade. Then when you get to the 8th grade, then you have to go to town school, like in Union County went to New Orleans, Lee County went to Tupelo, Pontiac County went to Pontiac, you know, they wanted to live in Pontiac County. So the bus would come to your house then after that, you know. It started back in the 50s when I started school. When we went to the 8th grade, from 1st to the 8th grade, we had a 2-room school. We had 4 classes, first to the 4th grade in one room, second, 5th to the 8th grade in another room. But we only had like maybe less than 100 students, you know. But it was fun, and then we would have split section, you know, like they call it split sections. Like say you go to, and in the summertime we would have, in those days when people would have revivals, church revivals, you know, in the daytime, and then at 10 o'clock we have revival in August while we was in summer school. And so we were out about 10 o'clock, we'd all walk to the church, to the church in the Red Hill, to revival, and then we'd come back to school. We stayed at the revivals over and we come back to school. I started 9th grade before, right in 64. But then after my freshman year, they closed all the county schools down. In 61, with all the children, all the black children in Union County, and City County went to Beaufort from 61 to 68. The year before, I was one the next to the last group. But the last group finished in 1960, 61. I finished in 1960 already. But the first year we didn't have, they were building on the new school and we didn't have the cafeteria. So they would sell sandwiches, or either we go to one of the local stores, to this Harvard Snack Bar, either down to Turner's Grocery, down the street and buy, where we buy sandwiches, and in the school sold sandwiches too. Sold in the home economic department they sold food, you know, like sandwiches, bologna sandwiches, and drinks and things like that. And the first year, but then the sophomore year, that's when the school consolidated. And we had the cafeteria, then they had the gym and everything. The elementary part was good, everything was good that year, and after that, all the county schools was closed down, and all the county schools closed down. So all the schools in Union County, all the black schools, went to New Albany. The bus would come, we had a bus driver from the living community, and he would pick up all the high school children, and they would come to your house and pick you up, and we'd go through Wallaby community and pick up the children over that lived in the Wallaby community, and then we got on to Beaufort, all the high school children, you know. And every little community had their own school at that time, you know, until like I said, my 9th grade year was the last year that they had to complete school. In my sophomore year, the 10th grade, well, all the children came to Beaufort. So we had 2 buses that go, and we go through the Jerkford community. We had several students that lived in the Jerkford community over on the other side of Fairfield. We had some children that they went to school with us too. Really, they consolidated their school. They closed. They had a school in Jerkford up until 1956. And then in 56, they consolidated. Really, they went to school with us, like going to school with us, and they really. And so then after we after they consolidated the school, well, one bus would pick up the children. Well, we had 2 buses in Red Hill. One would pick up all the children in Red Hill, and then the other would pick up some of the children, and then they go to Jackford to pick up the children and go on. It was a new experience. We would go home and eat, in the evening time we'd ride the bus, we'd go home, and usually in the evening time, especially in the fall, we would pick cotton, go pick cotton in the evening, maybe pick 20 or 30 pounds or something, make $1 or something. Have spending money to eat lunch and stuff. We got along good. We just bringing them together. Yeah, we make them together. That was something but some thought, they were a little different. Some of the children at first, they didn't think, you country children, you're not as good as we are. But then later on, they thought that, they thought they was, at the time, the country children, they didn't really think the country children was as smart as the city children. And, some of them thought that then, some of them. But I remember when they first consolidated the schools, some of the teachers thought they ought to put the county children in one class and the city children in another. They said, no, that ain't gonna work. So they put them all together because some of the teachers thought that the county children the city children were more advanced than the county children, but they found out they were all just like, wasn't really no different than them in that instance. They had good teachers, yeah. I got teachers in the county and in the city. Well, Mr. Miller Kennedy, you remember Mr. Miller Kennedy taught English? She was my ninth grade English teacher. And, Mrs. Gibson was my high school English teacher from 10th grade to 12th. And then Mr. Clyde Esther, so he was the math teachers, and Miss Ruby Keys, math teacher. Mr. Charlie Whitmer taught, he taught, well, agriculture, we had agriculture the first 2 years, and then we had industrial art, I believe. He started teaching me industrial art after that, after the first 2 years. And so then Coach Kennedy was the basketball coach, and dude, Ernest Kennedy, you remember him, Coach? He was the basketball coach and taught PE, physical education, and Miss Fanny Lieutenant, she taught history, and Miss Collins, and there's several people, there's some of my teachers. And Colonel Mays, I don't know, he was my ninth grade math and science teacher, but he left and went up, he taught several years, but he left and went up north, started teaching he went to move to Royal North my freshman year. And Mr. Rufus Hill was one of my teachers, and he was one of my science teachers. And later on, Mr. John Darden, he was one of my science. You remember John Darden? He was my senior, because he was instrumental in going to college at Mississippi Valley State University. But he just had graduated from Mississippi Valley State. And a couple of my friends, Henry Cobb and Charlie James Woodruff, they started at Valley State the year before. My senior year, it was a great year to me. And so then they back convinced me to go to Valley State, and then Mr. Dodge just had graduated from Valley State my senior year. And so then they put the icing on the cake, and so I just went on to Valley State for 4 years. I participated in the 4-H club. We had the 4-H clubs, and most of everything, and I would go to the ball games, I wouldn't play sports and things, but I attended all the ball games at night. But we had the 4-H club, and also the high ride and tri-high ride. We had most of everything was done during the school hours, most of the activities like the 4-H club and one thing I knew when I was going to school at radio, every year we'd always have a field day at Bill Ford. All the county children would come to Bill Ford, and once a year, and we'd have a 4-H club day, and we would have a parade downtown. We had to get a band. Maybe just one. I made a lot of time. I had a Carver School band, a two-player. And we'd have a parade downtown New York, and we'd walk our way down to town, and we'd have a green and white on, and then it'd be a holiday thing. That was a big treat, because we was in county school, and to go to a city school, and so that one day it was a lot of fun. But this was Fields Day. They called it Fields. This was before I started at school. The 4-H club. The 4-H club was Billy Jackson. Alan, you remember her? She was over the 4-H club at the time. She was the 4-H club director before my Judy White came in. She would come out to the county. She was always, she worked in the 4-H club, before in the county and the city, It was 4-H sponsored, but at the school. And we would go there, and it was a treat to us, the high school, because most of the children, elementary children, we'd have spelling contests, and we'd have, each school would do a stunt, some kind of song. Then we'd have, at that time, they had the old gym, they'd play basketball, sometimes they had little softball tournaments, and it was all big thing, It was a big event. It was Fields Day, We got a chance to ride to school, go to the big school, and we got it. It was a lot of fun. We were the Red Hill Cubs baseball team.
The Cubs.
Red Hill Cubs. Yeah, we had a summer league baseball team where And right here we play at the ball field. We'd have a school team, but we had a summer league team. We play all the summer. It's about every Saturday. We play our ball game. We would play the different teams out of the area. Like we go to Bell and Shannon, Tupelo, all our North Mississippi we would play. You know, they would come to us and we come to them. But every Saturday, like from April to August, I guess we play. We have a baseball game somewhere. And then we would have at the school we'd have somebody would sell at the concession stand. We'd sell hot dogs and fish sandwiches and drinks and things like that. We used the school, you know, we had it at the school, but so it was a lot of fun. And every year at the Grand School of Radio, we had a banquet every year. We'd have a big banquet, and we had school plays, and it was a lot of fun around on that. And in the summertime, we'd have we had a lot of people born in August. We was going to school in August. And had a lot of people born in August, and so I think one of the teachers, Mr. Hall. Anyway, every year we'd have a big party, and we'd have bologna sandwiches and Kool-Aid and cookies, and that was the holiday thing. You know, we'd have big parties and bars and things like that. Now we had a lot of teachers that lived out of the community, but they would board with somebody, you know, that lived in the community. They would most of them, you know, they would stay with somebody in the community, you know, and then they go home on the weekend. At the city school was 9 months, we just went 8 months. County school was 8 months. And but then we would later on like I said, we'd go to school in July and August, and then we'd be out for September, October, and then we'd start back in November, go from November to April. April we'd close down, and then we'd be out for May and June for summer. We would pick cotton on the weekend, and even a lot of time in the evening after school, we'd pick cotton maybe like get home about 4 o'clock and pick about 4 to about 6 or something to dark. And then on Saturday, took out this Saturday, and then, you know, like that. Well, they had a snack bar there near where the motel house, where J&B Motel now, they had a snack bar there, and we would go there, and they also they had like I said, they got the dugout, and we would go there, you know, and they go there, you know, and they had, you know, jukeboxes and things, you know, record players and stuff, and we would come they had a lot of cafes back in those days, you know, and they would have, you know, what they call jukebox, you know, machines, and we play spin the record and stuff like that. And then a lot of times we had stuff on the weekend at the school, at the gym. They would have a lot of dances and things at the school gym, and we'd go there a lot on the weekend. Especially, you know, when school was out. You know, and those days, there had a lot of cafes and what they call them juke joints now. And then they had a lot of ball games, and Tupelo they have tournaments every weekend, just about every weekend at college in Tupelo, so we got there a lot of time on the weekend.
What kind of tournaments?
The basketball tournaments, and then it was really no system, you know, they just play ball, you know, they play ball for I started at Friday night, and play all night Friday night and Saturday, and played about 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, on the weekend where we used to school for a community center, most likely. Yeah, we went to Washington, D.C.
Tell me what you remember about that.
Well, I remember we went to Washington, D.C. We spent the first night in Bristol, Virginia, and Tennessee. You know, spent the first night and the last night in Bristol. And half was in Virginia and half was in Tennessee. And so we spent the night at the hotel on the way. And then we went to New York. When we went to on that senior trip, we got a chance to go. We toured all the Washington area, you know, and we toured President Washington's President George Washington's house and President Thomas Jefferson's house. We toured all those places and went to Lookout Mountains in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I went to Austin Night Cemetery. I guess it treated me. We got a chance to meet President Johnson. That was right after President Kennedy was killed. And matter of fact, the day we were there, it was on his birthday. President Kennedy's birthday was 6 months after he had died. And President Johnson came there and put a wreath on his grave while we was there, and we got a chance to, so we had some pictures, take pictures with him and stuff like that. Yeah, we went there, and I did have some pictures, I don't have them now, but we got a chance to, we stayed around 3 days, but anyway, we toured. And then at that night, we took had a tour, we crossed the Potomac River. We had a cruise ship. We went across the Potomac River from over into Maryland. So we had a band on there, and so we had, I guess about 20-some schoolers there from all over the country. And I remember, but all the schools I remember that was in that from Mississippi was Boone, at that time it was Boone White School. They was on that, and our school, and all the schools, you know, the national where we was from, and we was from Mississippi. We was on the school in Mississippi, and the Boomer school, we were on the schools from Mississippi on that. That's part of the country was on that cruise ship from across the Potomac River. They were out in Maryland, and we had a band on that, and so we had a lot of fun. And like I said, we toured the Capitol, the White House, you know, just all the major attractions in Washington. We graduated Monday night. We had graduation on Monday night, and then Tuesday morning about 5 o'clock we left on that senior trip. So I remember going through, we went through Knoxville, Tennessee, and through Alabama. And I remember the first stop we made was at Lookout Mountain in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And we went over to Lookout Mountain, and we toured all over Lexington, Virginia. And we didn't get to, when we got to Bristol, we spent the night in Bristol. We got there about 9, 10 o'clock that night, and spent the night in Bristol. Most times we started at the bus stations because we rented a Cherry bus company. You know, they had a bus. We rented a Cherry bus, you know, company. They wanted to take us on a trip. They had to, you know, direct the bus driver. We charged the bus, you know, we charged the bus from they would come with the Cherry bus company. And so they had to direct the bus driver. They would take us on the tours. So we toured for like 6 days, so we didn't get back to New Orleans. We left out Tuesday morning about 5 o'clock, got home about 5 o'clock Sunday night. So we took 6 days.
Do you remember how much money it cost to do that?
At that time, it's about $35 to carry the whole trip, you know what I mean, for the ride and everything. Then, you know, you're spending money, maybe $50 would, $50 at night, $50 to pay the whole trip. Like in those days, $50 would buy you food and everything else, because you go to a restaurant, you know, most time we stop at the bus station, then we would stop in a little cafe or something, and you get a sandwich like for $1, then, you know, hamburger, drink, or whatever, you know, you can get. And so, yeah, my parents did all that. They had us packed up in a suitcase, you know, and we put everything on the bus, you know, and they had, you know, everything on the Greyhound Trailway buses, you know, they had the bottom of the ship, you know, where you put your suitcase and everything. Yeah, my parents, they had it fixed up, like I said, at that time we had graduation, we had baccalaureate ceremony. Would be on that Sunday, and then we would all march in, the juniors and seniors would march in, the juniors would march in with the seniors, and then Monday night we had a graduation. And so I remember I stayed probably about the county, so I just stayed with some friends who lived there down the street. The Robinson, I don't know, you know, the Robinsons, the New Albany, David Robinson, you know, Joe Robinson, and anyway, they lived, he had a couple sons in the class with me. And Gerald Robinson, Dennis Robinson, so I spent the night with them, you know, we just lived at that street. So we walked on up to the school. But we got there at 5 o'clock in the morning, you know, and went out and got on the bus. Yeah, so. My junior year, I went to St. Louis to see the baseball game, to see the St. Louis Cardinal, and actually I stayed with some relatives. But some friends of mine, they'd always go every year to the baseball games in St. Louis. And I got a chance to see Dan Newsom, Willie Mays, and all that. Harry Carey, and David Jack Buck, all of Hall of Famers that year. A lot of while I listened to the games all the time on the radio every night, and that was a big and then watch on TV on the weekend. And then actually be sitting in the stadium, watching the game in person, and that was really a thrill to me. My junior year in high school.
Who'd you go on that trip with?
Well, you ever know Mr. LeGrand Grass from New York, man? He rapped high school anyway, he drove the bus, he drove his own car, and Mr. Charlie Woodruff, he was one of the teachers, and Mr. Eddie McGee, one of my neighbors. So they would go every year, and I had some relatives that lived in St. Louis, and so we would spend the weekend with them, and they would take us to the ball game, you know, drop us off at the ball game, pick us up, but anyway, we went there, got there Friday, Saturday, Sunday games, and like Stan Music was playing there, and Willie Mays, and Kenny Boyd, all the famous names back in the 50s, man. Back in the 50s when we was, then back in the 60s, but not in the 50s, back in the 60s. So that was back in 63, 1963. I majored in science, general science. I taught school for several years. After I finished, then I started teaching history. I taught history for 30-something years. History at matter of fact, the last year, when they opened up the history at Beaufort School where it is now, I worked there my last year that I worked in school. I went to history the last year. I went to Beaufort, we started Beaufort that year. So I taught this high school for several years. Then I left there and I taught in Rowan and Oklahoma and Calhoun County for 20 years. It took about 4 years, then I started, and I changed the history, I think 71. And I worked in history from 71 to 2003. So I taught that. So I got married in 1989. And so I moved to New Orleans and started staying. But I was on Garfield Street. You know Garfield? My favorite next door to the New Haven School. We lived next door to New Haven School. And she died in 2012. We have a daughter, but she had 2 children before we married, you know, but she was married. We got 3 in all. Yeah, I have a daughter, Robin. She had a baby here about a month ago. She finished, she went to school they all went to school at Matt Thompson and finished it. They all went to the New York school system. But she graduated to Beaufort, not Beaufort, New York High School in 2008. And she graduated from Missouri State in 2012. And then my stepdaughter, she graduated from Andre High. You never know her. She teaches me out. Well, she taught me out a little while. She graduated in 95, and she taught she went to French College at Blue Mountain. But she teaches in Tupelo School. And my son, Devin Wade, he lived in Corinth. He had a set of twin boys, I don't know whether you know them. They are sophomores in the Colin Wade, the Cameron Wade, I don't know you know them. This sophomores, they play football, and they played there in high school. But she went to Malin School in Tupelo in Malin. She was custodian there about the last from 66, I believe. She worked there from 66 to 76. She worked about 10 years. Malin Junior High School in Tupelo. I was almost 6 years old when my young brother was born.
So y'all were very close in age.
Yeah, I was very close. I was born in 47. And the other brother was born in 48, one born in 50, 51, 52 years. All of us within 6 years. All boys, no girls. My mom had my mom and dad, and then my granddad stayed with us too, and so we had eight people in the house, and 7 men, 7 males and 1 female.
Was your mom the ruler of the house?
Yeah, she was pretty good, and then we get to the rep and she put her dad on, but yeah, it was a lot of fun, you know. He must have worked out, because he worked, that's what Adams and Clark Roofing Company, and he must have worked out, you know, and worked doing different companies. In Tupelo, he worked at Hard Baker for a while, then mostly worked at Adams and Roofing Company, and they would be out most of the wintertime, they would be out. But he liked to rabbit hunt, so my mama, she'd be a housework for, you know, children too, in the area, you know, and the white families in the area, mostly in the Blue Springs, you know, Fairfield, Blue Springs, you know, in the Blue Springs, the eastern area, you know. And so then he would go rabbit, he liked to rabbit hunt. So he would go rabbit hunting. When we get back home from school in the afternoon, he would buy a couple of he then got killed a couple of rabbits and had them boiled, and then the mom get that, she would fry them. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. We like rabbits, and at the school we'd always, every year we'd have a big, on the Valentine's Day at school, we'd always have a big day where we would have rabbits. People would kill rabbits, and we'd have rabbit sandwiches and Kool-Aid and Valentine's candy. We had a lot of fun. A lot of times in those days, people would, you know, do a lot of farming, and they had a lot of cows and things there. They sell milk. We sell milk too, and we had a couple of cows. My brother and I, we would sell. We'd milk cows and sell milk. The milkman would come down every other day, and we'd sell milk to him, and then we get a little check, like $12, $13, something like that, every 2 weeks. You know, for selling milk. Like I said, on Saturday, we look forward to the ball games. On Saturday, we had if we weren't playing it really here, we were playing a home game, we'd, you know, be going on the road to Pontotoc, Tupelo, Hickford, Shannon, Ripley, all over the northeast Mississippi. Back in my day, every little community had a baseball team. Every community had a baseball team. And now most of just play, you know, summer league, you know, city league ball, like that, you know, organized ball. But at that time, it wasn't really no organized ball. You just play ball, you know, you really didn't, you know, just have a game.
Something fun to do.
Something to do, yeah, and they sell, people sell stuff, you know, sell food, because everything out in the ground, you know, they sell drinks and fish sandwiches and hot dogs and hamburgers, stuff like that. They have a big old wash pot, cook fish in it, and sell fish sandwiches. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. And had a big old, they had drinks back then. They had a bunch of bottle drinks. Then they used to have, New Orleans used to have a Devil Cola Company. You remember that? New Orleans used to have a Devil Cola Company, so, you know, and we would buy drinks from them, and you could buy a case of drinks for $1 then, and you sell it for about $10, and you make a couple of dollars, Yeah, it'd be 24 in a case, and so that for $1, you could sell it for 10 cents, so you make $1, and you profit out of each string. But anyway, we have big old tub. People back in those days, we had to, there's a lot of washing in tubs, and so they go to the, you remember that you used to have an ice plant down there? You used to have an ice plant down there, there's over there, oh, where the bus station is, it wasn't, I mean, not the bus station, but the old bus station was at that time. There was now where, what the Red Car building is, you know, over there, down the hill from where the bank is. Anyway, they had a ice plant that you could get back a big block of ice. They go 50-pound block of ice, and they give about $1 or something like that. And they would put the drinks, get a big old tub, one of them great big old tubs. Put the drinks in there and then cool off, and sell them for. So that's where they make the money. And some of the communities, we had our own ballpark, but some of the communities, they had ball in the field, and you know what I mean, pastures. A lot of some of the communities, they had ball games and with cows and the horses and things. They play pasture ball, you know what I mean. They have a big bit of ball field, and the cows and things would be on one end and play ball on the other end. We played the same area, and Zion Chapel, you know what Zion Chapel Street, we played over there, and Inglemark, they cut out plug, you know what Pleasant Grove Church is? Played it out down in there, and played Merle up there, played Merle, and like I said, and we go to Antioch, Antioch, you know Antioch is the Blue Mountain. You know, it's Antioch is typical kind of outside of, well, you know what Beaver Dam Church is? The Antioch's on that road from, it's in Tippecanoe, but it's gone on that road from what Beaver Dam Church is. They up in there, they had a ball team, and they had one in Ripley, and out there in the St. John community in Ripley. And Shannon, they had every community. And Shannon had a ball team, that gets through 5, 6 different teams. Every church in Shannon, every community had their own ball team. Sometimes we go to Shannon for 3, 4 weeks at a time, you do playing ball. Tupelo, Tupelo had the lights, and they played, they had a ballpark in Tupelo. You know what Green Street School is? Mm-hmm. They had a ball field like we played there. Sometimes at nighttime, you know, they would play, they had lights, and so we played them sometime through the week. And Mr. Stone, Mr. Nathaniel Stone, he was principal at Green Street School for long. He just died here not too long ago. You know, he was referee of the game. Mr. Herford, Robert Herford, you know Wayne Herford be on the TV. His dad, he was the coach of Tupelo, and so we played him a lot of times at nighttime, you know, through and Pontiac, they had lights too at the black school, what they call it now, Pontiac, they had lights too, so we go there and play sometime at nighttime. But Johnny Wells, they said he was, you remember Johnny, he had his son that was down here. I think his son died last year. He was Johnny Wells, that was before my time, but they said he was the greatest best pitcher that ever come out of them.
Johnny Wells? Like W-E-L-L-S?
Yeah, his son was in it. I think his son died down here last year, his son and grandson too. Okay. They were down here. They was, I told them.
So that was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago, back in the.
What about during your day? Who was the best one you saw come through?
Well, Henry Carr was a good ball player. You know Henry Carr, he was a good ball player. And my brother Henry Armstrong, they played at Valley State. They played by Tommy Valley State, and I played a lot of good ball players. MJ McQuarrie, you know MJ? He played East Union. Marvin McQuarrie, you know Marvin McQuarrie? His son, he was a good ball player. We had a lot of good ball players. Tristan Price would play. Tristan Price, he gave it a big hit. He went to play for a while, I think.
Who's that?
Shifting Prize. He lived right here now. He played a little minor league ball, I think, for a few years.
Do you listen to the Cardinals on the radio?
Mm-hmm. I listened to him on the radio. Cause Harry Carey, at that time, he was the announcer. And he later on went to Chicago, but Harry Carey was announcing St. Louis. We listened to him every night. St. Louis Cardinal every night.
Would you keep up with the scores at
Yeah,
home?
I could the scores and while we read the newspaper and the day we took David John and we read about the ball game and then the Chicago Cubs, they played all their games in the daytime. They didn't have lights then. They didn't have a lot of games in the daytime. But them on the radio. They was playing them every day. Somebody, there was a dog game on the radio every day.
Who were your favorite players for the Cardinals?
I guess that Kirk Flood and Lou Brock and Bob Gibson, all them. Yeah, they all, I got a chance to see all them play, you know, when they was in, got a chance to see Kirk play with Hunter Run and Bill White and Willie Mays all in the same game. I got a chance to see all them and Juan Marichal for the Giants, and he's in the Hall of Fame. Willie Mays, Willie McCullough, all them. Stan Musial, you know, played the Cardinal. Kenny Boyd, all those guys, and Kirk Flood, and then Kirk Simmons. And there's a lot of the guys that was playing when I first went up there. They all in the Hall of Fame, man.